Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, great. So, so there's a big market here, I guess, which is good because that makes it worth standing here as well, from a commercial point of view. So, I just wanna thank the organization for inviting me here. And I just found out when I came here that this is the third time that Fairphone has the honor to be here, which previous times a colleague of mine was here. So I'm happy to tell the story of Fairphone a bit from my perspective. So I will be going into Fairphone itself, the problems, the e-waste, but also a bit on how, what it does to me. And we have a session also in the afternoon where I go even deeper into what it does to an entrepreneur and a person when you start something as crazy as a phone company. Just to set expectations, I'm not here to tell you about the big data. I'm not here to tell you about AR, VR, all the new digital stuff. Actually, I was pretty proud. I made this title while I was sitting here just a minute ago, and I thought, it's about bits and pieces. And for me, that means, you guys are talking about the bits here, and we've been talking about bits. But there's so many pieces that make those bits run, right? Everybody thinks that your data is data. No, data is actually, when it's somewhere in the cloud, data is actually stored into computers, into facilities that use energy. So I'm going to talk to you about, kind of the dark matter. And not in a very negative way, because there's a lot of good stuff happening there. But if you just see the dark matter as the stuff that you won't go into because you don't see it, that's a bit of the stuff I'll be talking about. So I love dark matter. I love opening stuff. This is one of my mottos. If you can't open it, you don't own it. To me, it's really about system change, because I think a lot of people here are sitting here because they believe in system change, want to change the system, through a company, through education, through whatever you guys are doing. But system change for me means finding out how that system works through the stuff that's already there, which is the easiest way. How do you get into dark matter? Well, by the matter you see. So for me, that can be a computer, a chair, whatever, and you go into that, how is that made? Just ask the question, how is it made? And what goes into it to make that? So in that context, I've been involved in setting up FABLabs. I don't know if you know that, but those are fabrication laboratories, 3D printing, that kind of stuff. I've downloaded a full restaurant from the internet just to annoy people that put some instructions online how to make stuff and then actually make a real company out of what they put online and then say, thank you very much. We made a lot of money on it, and thank you. It's really about, for me, that border of the digital world and the physical world, or not the border, but the integration of that, and how those two come together. So that's some of the work I've been doing, and one of the things that I really enjoy doing is finding out how the relationship between people and their products is. And one of those products, as you know, is also the smartphone that we've been talking about. And we've been talking about smartphones quite a lot already, and the bad influence and the good influence they have on it. But is there anyone suffering from nomophobia here? Nomophobia is actually one of those trivia that you start looking up if you run a smartphone company. It's nomophobia is no mobile phone phobia. It's actually, you can look it up, it's on Wikipedia, and it says, it's about those anxiety moments you have when you go to work and you find out you have no mobile phone with you, and if you have that feeling that feeling is nomophobia. So more than 50% of the people here in this audience has it. Another thing is, and this, that is the weird thing about smartphones, right? We are so much attached to it. We have, it's such a crucial thing in our life. It's, we love these things. But we do not know anything about it. How it's made, where does it come from, who made it, what goes into it. The dark matter I was talking about. And that's a nice paradox to play with. Well, you see people here. And, there was some, I think Greta had a sort of, had one of those rules, and she said, you do not. I think she was also saying something about when people use their smartphone in situations where you shouldn't. There's also actually research that shows that 1 out of 3 people picks up their smartphone when they're having sex. So, believe me, the smartphone is part of us. So, this is your smartphone. I'm holding a stone here. It's called cobalt. Cobalt, lithium, is being used for batteries. Batteries we use for cars, for whatever kind of products, to store energy in. Also smartphones. So this is kind of the beginning of your smartphone. It's Congo, and this guy got it out of the ground. He works in this situation for years and years. They go sometimes as deep as 30 meters, stay there for a couple of days. Sometimes you get mudslides, people die. Well, you get the picture. But there's another problem, and that is that in the last 10, 15 years, millions of people have died in the mining of the minerals that we use in our smartphones. That's cobalt, gold, coltan, silver. I can go on and on. This is also Congo. And then your smartphone gets into these kind of factories. I have to admit I exaggerated a bit because I kind of mirrored the whole thing, but it's still a big factory, right? So these factories do exist. This is where they make your Christmas toys and Christmas trees and the angel dust around summer. Whole villages are kind of in Christmas atmosphere and mood around summer, because then we are going into winter and we want to have our Christmas stuff produced. And then your phone gets into the hand of the consumer. You have your phone in your hand and you can't even repair it. The battery is glued to the inside. You can't even get it out. How many people here have actually repaired their phone, their batteries, screens? How many have repaired their screens themselves? Okay, that's quite nice. It's probably engineers. So let me show you a bit on how much we actually want that phone to be repaired, instead of just buying a new phone.
It is kind of funny how people react when the new iPhone comes out. Some people actually get mad. Why would they make another product? I desperately want to buy those bastards. It's almost as if the new iPhone somehow ruins the old iPhone, but it doesn't. It's all in your head. In fact, we set a camera out on the street today. We told people outside to check out the new iPhone 5, which is unavailable so far. So in reality, what they were looking at is the current iPhone 4S that everyone has. And, well, here's how that experiment played out.
The new iPhone 5 just came out today, and we want to know if you'll take a look at it, tell us how it compares to the last iPhone.
I'd love to. Oh, it's way better. Yeah, it's nice. That's definitely noticeably better.
It's a little thinner. Looks like the screen's a little bigger.
Seems a little bit faster.
Well, you get the picture, right? So, and then what happens if you don't use them anymore? Well, it ends up somewhere like this. There's more phones than people on the planet. Hey. Yeah, that means a lot of e-waste, electronic waste that we have to deal with. And most of that e-waste, well, not some or most, depends on how you look at it, ends up in countries where they have a lively second-hand market, which is good, but they cannot properly recycle these phones. If your battery is glued to the inside, if you want to have a thin phone, and I tend to call it electronic anorexia, because in a way, we want these phones to be so thin that it's very hard to actually get stuff out of that when you want to recycle it. So what they do, they burn it. Yeah, so that stuff goes into the ground, health issues, and that happens in Ghana and a lot of African countries where these phones end up as a second life. We don't want that, right? But we still have it. It's part of our, it's part of what we, of the supply chain of phones. And if you want to change that, you just go to these kind of events, these fairs. I don't know if you know the Mobile World Congress. This is the Mobile World Congress. At the Mobile World Congress, it's everything bling bling and the newest and the foldable screen and like 8 cameras on your phone. Nobody, really nobody, is talking about sustainability. Not one company. The biggest mega trend of the world and our existence is not even a discussion. So if you want to do something about this, if you say, well, let's change this industry, it is going to be difficult. But I always like this quote. This is from Anita Roddick from The Body Shop. If you think you're too small to have an impact, try going to bed with a mosquito in the room. And that is what social enterprises can do. That is what change agents can do. So, that's what we thought. Why not just make a phone and try to make that phone in a better way? It's a stupid idea, I know, it's naive, but at least it's a strategic, naive idea. We know we are naive, and maybe that naivety of getting into the minds, asking around, is there a fair mine, will get us to tell the story of what's happening behind the scenes, all that dark matter, through digital media, through crowdfunding platforms, through storytelling, all the way to the consumer. Because one thing that we need to make sure of is that we de-alienate people from what's happening behind the scenes, so that they can connect to the actual stuff that's happening there. Because otherwise you will never get to a solution. Because otherwise it's like, it's Africa or it's China, it's far away. Phones, they just grow on trees like apples. So what we did, and this is the more entrepreneurial aspect of it, we found a mine that had a bit more fair conditions, no conflict, and I took some stones. And I took these stones and I went to a operator in Holland, and I said, this stone is going to be a Fairphone. And that operator, actually, at that moment, I was lucky. These guys, they signed for 1,000 phones that didn't exist by a company that didn't exist, that never made a phone before. And they bought it for 450 euros maximum. So, and they communicated about it. They said, we just bought 1,000 phones from Fairphone. And then everybody was like, oh, wait a minute. If KPN bought 1,000 phones from Fairphone, which is still a stone, nobody knew, then it's going to be real. So what do you do when you're going to get real? You go to China, because that's where they make phones. And they were already waiting for us, as you see. So we found a factory with that same stone and said, guys, listen, this is going to be a Fairphone. And if you do this and that with the working programs, and we're going to invest in it, and we have more worker management dialogue, we set up a fund where we're going to contribute money to, then you can make our phones and we can all be running a fruitful business. And these guys, they thought like, well, that's a crazy story, but we want to go into the European market, so what the heck, let's do it. So they actually, we signed a contract with them. Changhong was our first phone, Fairphone 1. This one. 25,000 people bought this phone when it didn't exist yet, a half a year before we actually started producing it. We had 7.5 million euro on the bank account from people believing in the story by a team that had no idea how to make phones. And that was the moment where I thought, okay, this is going to be tough. I did actually have the feeling of paying back everybody the money and say, we showed that there's a market. But I'm so super proud and happy that we actually got to this point, that we got that phone ready. So, just some numbers. After 1.5 years, we had 40 people working at Fairphone. At the time, it was just me and my intern. We sold over 60,000 phones. We had 16 million turnover. And we were the fastest growing tech startup in Europe. That's some solid stuff for a company, but and maybe some unsolicited advice for people that are actually setting up companies here. At that time, and this is a quote I really love to kind of express what I was feeling. As a startup CEO, I slept like a baby. I woke up every 2 hours and cried. This is tough stuff. The responsibility that comes with the expectations of this. And to be honest, at this point, I still had no idea what I was doing. I was doing it, but running a company is so much different than setting up a project and then doing it. For me, it was like, great, we showed the world, and then all of a sudden you have 40 people, and it's going, oh shit, I need to come up with a continuity plan, and that's what what a company is about. So I'm super happy that we got through that. We've learned a lot, and we're already at our third phone. And we just launched it, so I'm going to do a bit of commercial stuff here as well. But it's also because I'm so proud of it that we actually got this far and launched our third product. So I'm going to show you the Fairphone 3.
Say hello to the new Fairphone, the phone that cares for people and planet, as well as swipes and posts. It takes great photos, even in low light. It has sleek styling, full-day battery life for your very full days, dual SIM, and a unique modular design that's easy to repair in case you... Oops. This is a phone that is built to last, but what really matters is how it's made. The new Fairphone uses fair materials, like fair trade gold. It's made with recycled plastics, and we strive for fair conditions for the workers. This is what you support when you own a Fairphone. Because in a world that doesn't seem to care, caring is the most radical thing you can do. The new Fairphone, out now.
So, just on the model of the phone. So this is the phone, but what's happening behind the phone, of course, is what we do it about. So how we work is that we have the phone, of course, right? And we want people to keep that phone in the hands as long as possible. And why? Because it's really funny. We talk about recycling and e-waste, electronic waste, all that stuff. But if you just make a simple calculation, if I use my phone twice as long, you only need to produce half the amount of phones. It's very simple. You have only half the amount of electronic waste. That's where the real impact, positive impact, can be made. The problem is that our business cases, our business models are still connected to the use of resources. Fairphone needs to sell phones to survive. So we have a dilemma here, right? And that's, I think, one of the challenges that we're faced with. How do we connect those two? But anyway, it makes sense to have people use their phone as long as possible, because most of the actual harm is already done when the phone is there. It's in production. But let's say that somebody does need, so you have the phone, does need to recycle the phone. We try to remanufacture as much as possible, get the minerals back, and then it goes back into the phone. We have programs also in the factories, like you saw in the movie, and we have programs in the mines. So I'll just go quickly through that, because I see I don't have a lot of time left. But the phone, how do you make sure that people can use their phone as long as possible? There's two sides to it. One is you make it easy to keep the phone, repairable. If your screen breaks, you just buy a new screen, put it in there. The battery goes down after 2 years. You make sure that people can change the battery. But there's another aspect to it, which I call the psychological lifetime. By telling these stories and showing people what's behind the scenes, we believe that people can also relate better to that product. And repairing is caring, and these kind of things. Because if people want to, if we can make phones that last longer, but if people want to use that phone for 2 years, they still toss it away. We have programs in the mines, as I said, and we're scaling those. So other companies are also joining us. We have worker programs in China with, where we have living wage programs, where also other manufacturers are joining us. And we take back more phones than we actually put into the market, especially in countries like Ghana, where a lot of the stuff is not properly recycled. So we have a very, very long way to go. And we're taking baby steps. Believe me, we're very small in the phone business. But by doing this, and you go back to the mosquito, we're already seeing, together with the customers, that show that there's a market, that there's other companies following us. We have programs also now in cobalt with the biggest German car manufacturers, which I can't mention because they don't want to, on cobalt. And you can imagine how much volume for these electronic cars can be used for proper mining, because you still can't get them all from recycling. So that's how we operate. So in that sense, I do believe that we can make that difference. And I want to finish with the mission that we actually wrote down 7 years ago with Fairphone, which is, by establishing a market for ethical electronics, we motivate the industry to act more responsibly. And I'm really proud that as a small company, we actually can still say we're on track of that mission. Thank you very much.